Hi, I'm Elise, and I am a champion of abuse. I like to use the word champion instead of survivor, although there was a season where I did identify as a survivor of abuse. I have transitioned. I no longer identify as a survivor. I like to identify more as a champion, and that just fits more with where I'm at right now. I have previously talked about narcissistic abuse, what that's like, what that feels like, kind of how it's just like one big game. It's like playing chess, just a bunch of chess moves, very methodical, very thought out, premeditated. There's always an agenda. And just kind of what that does to you as a person who's not like that, but is deeply involved with somebody who is like that. And then I shared about kind of the recovery process of what it's like to recover from abuse and kind of what that looks like for me, because I would say that I am more unique and my experience with recovery from abuse has been vastly different from a lot of the people that I personally have known and seen and encountered who have been recovering from similar types of abuse. So, with that being said, everything that I say is basically my own experience, which I do recognize is extremely unique. So, these messages are for a very niche audience. If you are not identifying with this, and if anything that I say is just not sitting well with you, then you probably, possibly don't belong here. So it's not anything personal against me or personal against you. It's just that it's probably best for your mental health to go find somebody that you identify with best. If you find that what I'm saying is making sense to you and you feel like you identify with it, welcome. So glad that you're here. I wanted to talk a little bit today about something that has just been like stewing in my mind lately, because I've just been contemplating. I'm a student, I'm a full-time college student, and I'm going to college to become a therapist. So I am learning a lot about human behavior and human psychology and things like that. And I've thought a lot about the words that people have used when speaking to me about my experience with abuse, and how I kind of tend to see a pattern in what people have to say, and it's helping me realize and acknowledge that there are just so many people who lack life experience and or lack experience in hell and or have yet to meet themselves at a certain level of depth, meaning they are not very self-aware, they're not very emotionally intelligent, they haven't done a whole lot of work on their shadow work, their inner child, attachment wounds, character flaws, things like that. And here, let me just explain to you what I believe is the psychology behind victim shaming. Victim shaming, as I believe and as I understand it, okay, and I am not, you may or may not consider me credible, so you don't have to take my word as, truth. But what I understand about a person blaming a victim for being abused is that there is a certain type of person, a certain type of personality that craves, desires, maybe even needs and demands understanding and or control. So if a person does not have understanding of something, then their only way of being able to achieve understanding is to decide that that thing that they don't understand must be false or something's wrong with it, or, they deflect the blame, right? Because they don't want to admit that this is something that they don't understand. So they're going to deflect that and say, well, then that thing is not understandable, or it is not real, or it is not true, or it is a lie, something like that. There's also that intense desire to control. So if there is something that they feel like they cannot control, then they will attempt to control it. So they'll say things like, why did you allow that? You really brought that upon yourself. Why did you stay that long? Or there's a lot of emphasis on the fact that an individual can control those circumstances. Now, the likelihood that these individuals probably have a problem and they're projecting their problem onto you, pretty high. Pretty high. And if you take the time to step back and really analyze the individual that is telling you these words, you might find some patterns of OCD, controlling behaviors, maybe even abusive behaviors coming from these individuals. Because what I have found as I have dove in deep within myself and I have come to really examine myself and get to know myself and understand my situation and examine my situation, I would consider myself the expert of myself and the expert of my situation. So if anybody pretends to know better than me, then that is a projection of them battling themselves and battling their own demons, rather than an actual representation of the reality of me and my situation. I also recognize that this is a defense mechanism because a lot of people don't like the idea of things happening to them that they cannot control. This is a very uncomfortable thought. This is a very uncomfortable concept. And so they will attempt to project this image that all things can be controlled by yourself. It's very, very, very possible that these people are dealing with something really, really ugly in their personal lives that they're not ready or willing to talk about, or maybe they're still in denial about, something that they themselves are completely out of control with. And so they are projecting this image of control onto you. Like you could have controlled the abuse. You could have controlled the situation. And the fact that things were going so awry is on you. When in reality, they just cannot accept the fact that there is something going on in their own lives that they cannot control. And their OCD or their controlling character flaws are really going haywire right now and bouncing off the walls inside their brain, and they just can't stand it. They can't stand it. Now, there's also types of narcissists, and as I go along in my program, I might even be able to confidently say that all narcissists and individuals with this specific narcissistic trait, they don't like the idea of somebody actually being a victim of a heinous crime or abuse. You see, it makes them feel small. It makes them feel inferior. It makes them feel like, uh-oh, I am not the spotlight. I'm not the special one here. I'm not the one getting the attention. I'm not the one getting the praise. So I need to make that victim over there feel small, feel insignificant, feel a fool, so that I can feel superior. We're talking elementary school bullying all over again as adults. Oh, that person had something bad happen to them. Well, we're going to shame them for it, and we're going to talk about us. Just all it has to do is the fact that they want to detract any kind of attention, whether it's positive or negative, that's going towards a victim, and redirect that attention towards themselves. Positive, negative, whatever, doesn't matter. They just want to feel special. So, before taking to heart any of the advice or anything that ideas, opinions that anybody shares with you, before taking any of that to heart, what's most important is that, one, you trust yourself. If you trust yourself, then nothing that anybody else says is going to make a dent. People that are supposed to be trusted sources, people that are supposed to be near and dear to you, people that are supposed to be there to support you, uplift you, help you along this way in a productive, helpful way. Hearing things like that from them will sting, and that's natural. But what's most important is that you know who you are, you know the reality of what you survived, and you know that you did it exactly how you should have, to minimize as much aggression and violence as possible, and to help save yourself, your children, and anybody else that was involved that you knew that you needed to protect. And it's the second thing is to also realize that there are just too many unhealed people out there. There are too many people who have not had any kind of life circumstance or opportunity really that forced them in a position where they had to meet themselves at all levels of depth. These people don't really know themselves. They don't know themselves very well, and they're projecting that onto you. They're projecting that mistrust, misunderstanding, lack of understanding, lack of knowledge. They're projecting that onto you as if you are not to be trusted, or you lack knowledge of the subject, or you don't understand everything about your situation. They're gonna project onto you that, maybe you've been lying to yourself, because there's no way that your situation could have been that bad. All of this is a very, very crystal clear spotlight on that unique individual. It's not that unique, but onto that specific individual of how much they don't know themselves, and how much they don't trust themselves, and how much they don't know about the ugly reality of a certain aspect of life. This doesn't make your truth less true. This doesn't make your experience less real. Everything that other people project onto you is them revealing themselves to you. It's not them revealing you to you. If you know that you have done the inner work, if you know that you have done the sufficient time, effort, energy necessary to get to know yourself, to heal your inner child, to do that inner shadow work, then you have no reason to be concerned with these unhealed individuals' ideas, opinions, projections. Because when you have done the inner work, and when you have gotten to know yourself sufficiently, you know that the way that you talk to people and the way that you interact with people is 100% a reflection on you, not them. When you have reached a certain level of emotional maturity, emotional awareness, self-awareness, and you have gotten to know yourself so well, then you are able to see other people with the same level of clarity, and you're able to see that what they're saying to you is a reflection on them. How they're treating you is a reflection of them. Their lack of understanding is not because your reality isn't real. It's because they don't understand, or it's because they can't control something in their own lives, or they can't understand something in their own lives. So knowing this is a good opportunity for you to be self-aware and practice some more self-awareness, and just be aware of how you treat other people, because how you make them feel is basically revealing to everybody how you feel about yourself. If you want to make another person feel shame, it's because you are shaming yourself. If you want to make a person feel stupid, it's because you yourself feel stupid. If you want to make somebody feel uplifted and edified, that's because your inner world is uplifting and edifying. When you are light, you project light. When you are darkness, you project darkness. I'm not really sure that I have anything else to share on this subject. I would eventually make a video about the links between neurodivergence and abuse, because I feel like more often than not, there is most likely an undiagnosed neurodivergent individual who is in an abusive situation. And that is one of the reasons why there is so much frustration around this subject of why do people end up in abusive situations? Why do they stay? Why can't we understand this? Well, I am of the belief, and I'm going to continue to research this throughout my school and throughout my career, that I do believe that probably most victims of abuse are probably neurodivergent individuals. And there's a reason for this. There's a reason why neurodivergents have a tendency to end up in abusive situations. So with that being said, thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Share this with somebody who you feel like needs it. And leave me a comment if it is, genuine and helpful and real, and wants to promote like a good, edifying, educational, helpful, lighthearted conversation. And yeah, let's keep this conversation going.